Good morning, Deborah Watkins, aka Auntie Deb, author of the book From Mediocre to Marvelous, Get Out of Your Rut and Live a Fulfilled Life. I am also a certified Christian life coach. It's January, the end of January, and I know that you are still working on those resolutions, that you're getting it done, that you have developed good habits, that you have changed your lifestyle. And I also know that you're working on your homework that I gave you in the beginning of January, which was to get quiet, to go into your private closet. If you don't know what your purpose is in life and you don't have a goal and you need clarity, remember you were supposed to get quiet, go into your closet, and ask the Almighty, what am I here for? What is my blueprint? What am I supposed to leave in this world? What is my DNA screaming out to do? How am I going to serve others? How am I going to help this world be a better place? How can I bring glory to God? Remember, that was your homework. And so I know that you are still working on that. And I'm very proud of you. To all of my honeys, remember, subscribers are my honeybees because we are part of a tribe of bees because you are connected to me. And Deborah in Hebrew means bees. And we are the sustainers of life. What am I going to talk about today? This will be the last topic in the series in my book from the chapter on personal power. And that is flexibility. Flexibility, being flexible. Why is that important? If you are in the corporate world or some spaces and you're trying to be recognized, right? You want to elevate, you want to get promoted, or you want to transition. You want to transition. You're going to have to be flexible. People who display personal power have the ability to adapt easily. And it is probably one of the most hardest things for people to do because we do not like change. And few people embrace it wholeheartedly, you know. And if you're a person who adjusts quickly to change, you're ahead of the game. You're ahead of the game because, and I'm not saying that you have to compromise your principles or to do anything ethical, in terms of change. But if it does not mean that you're compromising principles or is something unethical, do not fight when these organizations and these countries, these companies are pushing towards changing something, changing some plan or whatever, because it's coming whether you want it to come or not. That's the bottom line. So you have to keep your finger on the pulse and find out what's going on, what the change is about, and do I have a place in it? Because if not, then you probably need to be looking for something else to do, because just look at how the world changed with technology. And I remember when technology was starting to really turn things around in the department that I worked in, and people they just refused to embrace it. And then they slowly had to weed them out. They weeded themselves out. People retired, they resigned because they couldn't keep up with the pace at how things were changing, because technology changed the world 20 times. 20 times. And so things that would have changed maybe a year, technology changed it like 20 years in 1 year. So organizations look for people that's going to help them move projects forward. And, this is, of course, after careful analysis and the final decision has been made. You want to know what's going on. And I admit, I wasn't always flexible, but I had to see every angle. I was willing to, but I was willing to take the risk. Once I looked at every angle and saw what was happening, I was willing to take the risk because I knew that change was happening and I wasn't ready to leave. And the Bible, surprisingly, talks about flexibility. It doesn't use the word flexibility in there, but the Apostle Paul was a prophet in terms of that. One of the things that he said, and this was in 1 Corinthians 9:22-23, he says, "To the weak, I become weak to win the weak." He says, "I have become all things to all people, so that by all possible means I might save some." So he was saying, if I needed to be weak, then I become weak. If I need to be strong, I'll be strong. He said, I become all things to all people. In other words, I was flexible. I was flexible. He was saying I was flexible in order to fulfill what God had put him on this earth to do. He said, I couldn't do things only the way I saw it, my way. And Proverbs 16:9 says, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps. All right. In other words, you can make plans, all right? And we're supposed to. However, if something is prompting you to switch gears because it's not going right, and usually if it's not going right, that means you need to switch gears, then you need to switch gears. And we don't always want to do that for whatever reason, but when it happens and you have to be willing and you have to be ready. You have to be flexible. That's what it says in Proverbs. And as you may not have paid attention, but all of my talks, I seem to always refer to something out of Proverbs. So this is what I want to say as a sidebar. If you don't read no other books of the Bible, if you don't read none other book of the Bible, I implore you to read Proverbs. Just to read all the Proverbs. Proverbs are the books of wisdom. You can't go wrong. It talks about every portion of life. Proverbs. So if you don't read any other books, okay, no other books, read Proverbs. Philippians, the Apostle Paul too, as well, he said he's learned how to be content. He said when he was cold, if he was hungry, he talked about all the things. If he was full, if he had plenty, if he didn't have it, he talks about if I didn't have this or if I had it, if I didn't feel this way, if I felt it. He said, I have, whatever it was, I have learned to be content. Meaning, right, that he had to be flexible. He was like, I can't get myself all upset and uptight because of my situation. And some people are so uptight. It's like, I'm not changing for anything or anybody. That's got to be my way or the highway. Okay. That's why no one wants to be around you. That's why nobody wants to be bothered with you because it's your way or the highway. And, our children teach us, those of us who have children that teach us, okay, it can be the highway, your way or the highway. And guess what? When they get old enough, they're going to do it their way. So you better be flexible, especially as a parent, because as long as they're not breaking the law and as long as they're not being disrespectful and they want to do something a certain way, let it be. Because it could be what God has for them to do. And if it's not, it's their journey. And they have to learn just like we had to learn. And we didn't do everything that, well, maybe some of us didn't, that our parents wanted us to do. So, to my bees, my honeybees, I say thank you again. And for those of you who are listening maybe for the first time or you've been listening all the while and you're getting all this good talk, but for some reason you don't want to subscribe. I don't understand. But I'm patient and I'm flexible and I'm humble and I am grateful. That's the word. I am grateful. So stay good, stay clear, and get ready for the next talk. All right.